Terra Gallery is part of the New Media Caucus and is dedicated to promoting the creative output of our members by situating their work in thoughtfully curated exhibitions that take place across our entire web presence. New Media Caucus is an international nonprofit association formed to promote the development and understanding of new media art. We represent and serve artists, designers, practitioners, historians, theorists, educators, students, and scholars. Recognizing new media art to be inherently interdisciplinary, multimodal, and evolving, we support and advance a wide range of inquiry to catalyze further evolution of the field. The New Media Caucus is committed to extending and sustaining the diversity of our community, board, and membership, to promote an environment of equality, inclusion, and respect for difference. We prioritize inclusion as an ongoing collaborative process of growth that we continually address both within the caucus and in our field.
Welcome everyone to the 21st episode of Heather Footer Presents. I'm your host Rene.
And I'm your co-host Constanza.
For this episode, we will talk about two exhibitions we saw this year. One of them is Āmantēcayōtl, and when it disappears, it is said the moon has died, by Fernando Palma Rodríguez at Canal Projects in New York City. And the Walker Art Center's Gallery 9, an older exhibition held at the Walker's virtual exhibition space of the same name. So, with all that said, I think, first of all, Constanza, can you tell us about this exhibition and why you chose it?
Sure. So this is one of the exhibitions that was curated by a longtime friend and colleague, Sara Garzón. It is part not only of her research, but it's something that I'm very much interested in looking at further in terms of cosmologies and technologies and ancestral knowledges that we have, especially of different cultures and groups of communities and people as well. And so this exhibition stood out to me because of how well it was curated, how well the message of the work actually was portrayed in the exhibition space, right? But also, I love interactive exhibitions, and seeing how people were immersed in it, but also interacting with it was really exciting. So while not directly part of my research, it is something that I want to look further into, right? This right now that you're seeing here is the Canal Projects website. This is the sort of the curatorial blurb that, curators often write, just explicating, what the exhibition is about, right? Āmantēcayōtl is a Nahuatl term, right? And it speaks about, I can just show you right now. It speaks about cosmology, technology, but also land rights of different peoples, right? And it does so by exhibiting a lot of Fernando Palma Rodríguez works which encompass technology, more specifically robotics, and how he intertwines them with things like natural things like nature and corn and maize, I should say, among other things as well. But he has about a number of different creatures that he represents that are apart from Nahua culture. So you have here the snake, I believe a jaguar, and a coyote as well, right? That he sort of embodies within these works. So once you get inside, and I can show you pictures right now. Let's see. These are 6 of them that I can show you. And just the way that people were interacting with the exhibition was really interesting, because once you enter Canal Project space, which is a fairly large exhibition space, they have 2 spaces, one in the first floor, the one in the second floor. The place was transformed into a lot of these corn stalks that were exhibited everywhere, and then enmeshed with that, we had the robotic animals, right? And you'll notice that these robots are actually made using very simple materials. There's Arduino that he uses among other things, but also he has here like a CD, for those who know what CD players are, back in the day. But also other household objects, right, that he sort of incorporates, but also changes their use, right? which is really fascinating. So they also have on the top left corner image, he has these pots, and on the pots, they look like drawings from the I'm gonna blank out on this, so we're gonna have to edit this. Um, the codices. They have images of codices on to the pots. And what happens is that all these different robots that you see here, they are timed. So people think that they're interacting with them, but it's not the case, which is a really interesting effect. But the pots in particular, they rattle, which is very interesting. Um, there are these other creatures like in the middle image, also the one on the bottom middle image, and what they do is that they start to move unpredictably, right? So when the curator and the artist Fernando Palma were also talking at the opening of the reception for the exhibition, people were startled because the animals, right, the robotic animals, they sort of started coming towards people, and it was just unpredictable, which is really exciting, right? Shout out to my friend Bowie, who is on the bottom left, who is taking images of one of the robots that just moves sporadically, right? Which is really cool. Um, this exhibition is up until July 27th, I believe. So if you get a chance, please go visit it at Canal Projects, which is located at on Canal Street, I should say, in New York, close to Chinatown. Um, but this is a little bit about the exhibition. Do you have questions, Renee, about it?
Well, first of all, can you go to the pictures at the bottom first?
Yeah, of course.
So one of the things I'm noticing is it's very hard to see in the images unless you zoom in.
Yeah.
But there's like the corn stalks you talked about. Those are milpas. I don't know if you're familiar with the milpa system.
But yeah, why don't you explain a little bit more about it?
Okay, well, so the milpa is a system of agriculture. It's what in America is called the Three Sisters, but basically it's a way of harvesting corn and other food products. Because one of the problems that corn has is that it's very destructive. It strips the land completely of nitrogen. So after a few crops of corn, you have useless land. So one of the ways that that was solved back in the day, and it's being tried to be revived, but it's not mass production friendly in a way, is by growing it in conjunction with two other plants, which is what you call zucchini, which we call calabacita. And also with because zucchini is, despite its Italian name, it's a Mexican plant. And with beans,
it's like a squash, right? From the squash family.
It's from the squash family, yeah. Well, all squashes are North American. It's just zucchini specifically is the one that's used in Mexico. I'm pretty sure up north with like the Pueblo people and others, it probably is other types of pumpkins that are more robust with thicker skins. But yeah, so the zucchini and then the beans, like black beans. And in a way, that's why Mexican food is the way it is, because it's three of the main ingredients of Mexican food. We eat the flowers from the zucchinis, we eat the actual zucchini, and then we leave the plants, the body of the what's it called? The stems in the land, and that's what gives alongside with the beans, that's what puts nitrogen back into the ground that the corn has consumed. So it can be sustainable. There's a lot of research on whether it actually is or not. There's some people that lean towards yes, but this is tied so much with identity and the other things and politics and stuff that there's people who just outright say no, it is an eco-friendly thing, but that falls into the nature's fallacy and the noble savage and all these things. So we have to be careful about making those types of statements. So far it's disputed, but it is known that in small scales it actually works. It's how most Mexico is not actually a fertile land, despite of like what it looks like. At least not for agriculture. There's not a lot of space for agriculture. So most of the crops are for subsistence, right?
Yeah.
And that's where the milpa thrives, because you can also grow chilies in there, and that protects the plants from other things because of the capsaicin from the chilies. Well, not scaring away birds. Anyhow, so it is interesting that he's integrating these things, but you also recognize, like if you're Mexican, you recognize elements of things that to us are normal. So, for example, the pots. Everybody in Mexico has a pot like that, and the spoon it jumps at me even more than the pot, to be quite honest. Then those CD players, every single well, we call them albañiles, but it's construction workers. All of them have one of those because they're playing music while they're working, and they tend to be cheap, and they're like very sturdy considering. And you can catch FM radio, you can catch AM radio, and then you have your CDs, which you buy for really, 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 really cheap in mercados, which is obviously very illegal, but nobody cares. So they're indicators of culture. And then when you look at what is very clearly a Quetzalcoatl, where the child is in the bottom middle. If I'm not wrong, I could be wrong, but that looks like corn husks, like the leaves that protect the corn.
Yeah.
So
they almost look like the things that you use to make tamales, right?
They don't. They are. They're literally that. So so there's also this whole thing that the corn, like you use the leaves, well, not the leaves, the husks to make tamales, but there's also other uses. But you can also use it for lighting fires and other things, like the ashes are used a lot. So there's all these sounds. Let me see if there's something else I recognize in the bottom on right side. No, I don't think so. It's just the corn and the spoons again. Yeah. So there's like this very like things that are, like, as a Mexican you would recognize immediately as part of culture. That one's interesting. But for a different way, because that spider is not Mesoamerican. That spider is, if I'm not wrong, and I could be very, very wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm not, is from the what is it called? It's these in Nazca? Yeah, the Nazca figures in Peru.
Okay.
I don't know if you can find, like, spider imagery is not very common in Mesoamerica, at least not in Mexica culture. Which also gives me like this jumping point into another thing that Aztecs are mythological; they don't exist. Then you have the Mexica, which is a very large group of people, and not all of them were part of the empire. And then you have within that group, one group called the Mexica, which are the ones that settled into what we call Mexico City. That's what commonly is known as the Aztec Empire. But it's alarm because we were going to record later, sorry. So what was I? Yeah. So those people are what we call the Aztecs, but it's not technically accurate. It's like thinking of Romulus and Remus, like the Aztecs would be something similar, like, or the Trojans from the Iliad, right? Like they are the descendants of the Romans according to mythology, but we don't know if that's actually true. I don't know if you've heard of that. Yeah, like Romans claim that the Trojans were their descendants.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
And by Romans, I mean like people in the time of, the Roman Empire, not contemporary Romans. But yeah, so, and there's also like, well, obviously the integration with the deity. So I think that's very, very interesting in terms of what he did. It's him.
Yeah,
I think. I mean, the name is very male coded.
Yeah,
but you never know.
No, I think what stood out for me the most is that it is a commentary, like you were saying, on identity, land, and tradition, right? But also to me, I'm always going to be very critical of the artwork that I see that is digital or new media focused,
Mhm.
because a lot of them serve to hype up the technology, like AI, for example,
Yeah.
or among things. And it bothers me to a certain extent where, like, what purpose is it using other than to hype up this technology, but also the culture surrounding this technology, right? Um, so when I went to see this exhibition, it was very refreshing to see how, the robots themselves are used with these types of older, if you want to call them that, older
Yeah.
technology, right? Um, and they don't function, or maybe function is not the right word, but they don't work in the same way that we would think technology now works, right?
Mhm.
So for example, the CD players, right? They had a specific use back in the day, especially when CDs were popular and people were burning CDs
Yeah.
on LimeWire and all that. I'm guilty
Making
of that.
mixtapes.
Mixtapes, yeah. Yeah, exactly. But which is interesting because he also repurposes those technologies for different ends as well. And I think something like that sentiment is so poetic, um, in regards to how we think about our relationship with technologies today, right? And I think
Yeah.
that's what's something that I took away from this exhibition.
Now that you mentioned that, like it's very interesting because are you familiar with the term autoconstrucción from Cruz
Autoconstruction.
Villegas?
No.
So Cruz Villegas is a Mexican artist. It's like one of the Curimansuto big ones. So it's Cruz Villegas, Orozco, el Doctor Laca. No. Um, Cruz Villegas grew up very, very poor, but ended up going to like a very elite schools and stuff like that. But one of the things in Mexico that's very common that you see, especially in poor neighborhoods, is houses that are built in different stages. So you can see like maybe the bottom of the house is built in very old bricks. And then on
Mhm.
top of that, you have a construction made with cinder blocks. And then on top of that, you have like actually finished structures. But almost all the time, you will see at the top of the buildings like beams, not beams, they're girders, like metallic, the scaffolding for the building itself. Cruz Villegas considered that image as a symbol of hope, right? Because it's like,
Hope.
because you're literally hoping that you can build another floor on your house, another
Yeah.
story,
Okay.
not another floor, right?
Yeah.
Otro piso. So he takes that and he turns it into his own work in autoconstruction, and he uses like found materials. He uses found materials, but in a different way than Picasso or Duchamp did. The way Cruz Villegas uses was it, like found objects is as means of constructing something, whereas the other ones is like a more aesthetic selection. Say,
Yeah.
oh, well, this looks like a bull's head. Okay, so I will put it there. Whereas Chris Villegas is trying to build something with them symbolically, not always actually
Symbolically.
physically,
Yeah. Yeah.
but he still does it. And in this case, when you look at the robotic images, can you go to the robot, whichever one? The robot, actually, that one, yeah. So you see the wiring, and there's this whole idea of like I don't know how to say this. Improvised
Yeah.
electrical work and improvised use of material. So there is this element of autoconstruction in this work, but also this cultural thing. Every culture that's slightly leaning towards poor says that it's their unique trait, but everyone does it. Like this idea that you're able to fix your own things, that you are able to mend something with a piece of paper and a rubber band. So there's a little bit of that haphazard thing, which is also part of the construction as well.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
you see a lot of that in this work, and I really find it interesting. Which takes me
Yeah.
now to, yeah. So go ahead.
No, like the last thing I was gonna say is you pointed out something really interesting, which is the wires. That is something
Mm.
that I I remember from when you had the experience of, being curator at, I'm trying to remember, in Connecticut,
The Ammerman
like
Center, yeah.
the Hammerman Center. and how you were worried about the wires showing, right, in a couple of exhibitions and how to mask it or whatever.
Yeah, well, there was a different consideration there. An
Right.
actual, it was a metaphor, well, not metaphorical, how do I put it? Like ideological stance behind hiding everything. Because the whole point of that show ended up without wanting it to be about nature. Like we
Yeah,
ended up being about nature and water and relationships and things like that. So having the wires would have exposed the artificialness of it, and I mean, it's a little bit dishonest, right? But at the same time, it's like I wanted to pretend that these things were natural in a way.
yeah, which is different but also ironic, I think, in Fernando
Yeah,
Palma's work, where the wires are something that you see everywhere across, and they sort of like blend between the corn husk and all the other, objects that he has there, which I found, and you even see in this particular picture,
mm-hmm.
you see the little tags that say number 1, like pieces of tape. Like he didn't take those off, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, that was really interesting, but also, again, I'm going to say refreshing, because despite the fact that, we're thinking about technology and new media and all of this, you actually get to see the construction of things, which probably, again, we can go refer back to what you were talking about, autoconstrucción too,
Yeah,
which
it's
I love.
yeah, it's ironic though because in his work there's natural elements and he's trying to
Yeah,
make it look robotic and like this thing, right? Like part of the
yeah,
robot. Whereas
yeah,
we had artificial, everything was artificial. We tried to make it look natural by the absence of technology. So
exactly.
it was very curious.
It's a
A
different
good
strategy.
parallel. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a different strategy
and
for
that
different symbolic purposes too.
sometimes I think well, supposedly every curator thinks about whether they should be showing the wires or not. I don't know if that's true.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't. It's just a feel thing, right? Like a vibe. uh, it's a vibe. It's like what do I want to communicate, but I don't overtly think of the cabling unless it's very
Yeah.
very obvious. But anyhow, I do have one question though. Which one is your favorite? Is it
My
there?
favorite
Can you
robot?
see it? Yeah.
Well, let me see if I can find it. I did like the pots for sure because they were something. I like the pots in particular because it wasn't so um in your face as, for example, the one of the robots with the red head that just starts
Mm-hmm.
coming to you, like it walks towards you,
Oh,
which is,
cool.
yeah, so they move constantly. And what's interesting in the exhibition, all you hear is like the flapping of not only the corn husk,
Mm-hmm.
but also the other elements, especially the gold. What would you call them?
Foil.
Like the foil, exactly. The foil that's contained in some of them too. So it was a really interesting audible experience. But the pots, because they made noise, and also it was something so um intimate in the sense that you had to crouch down and actually get to hear the pots
Mm-hmm.
making the rattle sound, right? So I think that's why I enjoyed it the most. It was a feast for the senses, as one would say.
I should mention about that foil. There's something in my Mexicanosity that has
Yeah.
seen that and associates it with something, but I cannot pin it. Like I
Okay.
know foil is a very Mexican thing. I cannot tell you why. Like
Hmm.
I see that golden foil and I think Mexico. It's not something that I can pinpoint why. Maybe someone can put in the comments or something. I don't
Yeah.
know. But yeah, it's a very very Mexican thing. Oh, they have a bio booklet in the catalog. I just saw that.
So yeah, so this is, I'm just gonna put it out here. This is Fernando Palma Rodriguez's bio. Should I read it,
Mm-hmm.
or we can see it, right? We're also gonna put a link to this exhibition
Oh yeah.
up online. So for those who are interested in looking further and perhaps wanting to go visit Canal projects, they can do so as well. Um, yeah, and there's a booklet and a catalog for every exhibition that Canal Projects does.
Yeah.
So that is
Cool.
available for everyone. But yeah,
Um, I was looking at this, and yeah, remember when you told me about this? Like, I was like, this is not Mexica. Immediately, I knew
Hmm.
it was Nahuatl. And
Yeah.
yeah, he is from the region, so it makes a lot of sense. And yeah, everything, the word cinco, everything is very, very Nahua coded, which is interesting. But yeah, so I really think it's a really cool exhibition, and it's a shame I cannot go. Um,
Yeah. This is
Maybe they can
actually
bring it to
his
Germany.
yeah. No, the only thing I was gonna add, he had a retrospective at the MoMA PS1 a couple years ago. And so this is his
Mm,
second largest work in the US, I believe. Don't
yeah,
quote me on that. So just, and it was a successful exhibition for sure. A lot of people were talking about it and how different and
I can see
unexpected it
why.
was. Yeah, exactly.
Also, fun fact,
Great.
yes, it is a milpa. It's there at the bottom paragraph.
Yeah,
I wouldn't call the milpa sacred, but I mean, there's some people that make that interpretation.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
Like, I don't know. Sometimes I think we over intellectualize some things, especially in anthropology. There's this joke amongst anthropologists that if something holds water, by default, it's ritual.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you think about it, like if you take some archaeologists from like 300, 400 years in the future, put him in a post-apocalyptic Japan, and they start finding images of a anthropomorphic cat figure in
Mm-hmm.
plates, in bowls, in clothing, they're gonna think that Japan had a cat goddess,
Yeah.
whereas what they found was a Sanrio shop.
Yeah.
That was an actual exhibition. That was an actual exhibition I saw in the UK once.
That's
Now that we're talking
interesting.
about exhibitions, yeah, it was an
Yeah.
exhibition that talks about precisely those blind spots that historians, curators, everyone has. And one of the things is like if you found
Yeah.
this and you didn't have contemporary context, you might misinterpret Hello Kitty as the head goddess of this pantheon that also has a frog, a penguin, and other
Yeah.
creatures in as part of the pantheon. Not only that, some of those creatures are not native to Japan, like the penguin, as far as I know. Maybe there are penguins in Japan. I don't know.
I don't think so.
I think they're too far up north. But yeah, so and that would send people into other speculation. So it was a really cool mental exercise into that, like thinking
Yeah,
about
for
those
sure.
things, right? And also
Well, just imagine.
delineates. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, just imagine like the work that we do as historians, despite the fact that we work in more contemporary terms, right? But we still make these associations, right? These jumps, these
Yeah,
speculations, because that's
yeah,
also part of our job, but also it is a blind spot that we have to, sort of think about and not forget also that is could be misleading, right?
yeah. There's also bias. Like, for example, I think it's Vermeer's milkmaid. Is that Vermeer?
Yeah, Vermeer.
So Vermeer's milkmaid. First of all, it's not a milkmaid.
Hmm.
You know that.
So I had learned it as something else, but go ahead and then I'll tell you what I learned about it.
Okay, so she's not a milkmaid because she's inside the house.
Hmm.
The milkmaid would not be serving the milk into the thing.
Okay.
Let's start with that. Like the milkmaid would be coming in from the farm, selling you the milk, putting it into a pot, and you would take it into a house and do the thing.
Yeah.
But not only that, like that painting for a lot of people, when you tell them what it's supposed to mean, like they get really shocked because they can't imagine it. It's an erotic image.
Yeah.
It's basically the equivalent of a pinup girl.
Uh-huh.
They were seen as so one. This has to do with Dutch culture, but they were
Hmm.
seen like housemaids were seen as erotic,
Hmm.
right? And people, but this is an erotic image, and people are like, but no, this cannot be. And then it's like there's little elements that give us that context. So, for example, there's a little cupid at the bottom on one of the tiles,
Hmm.
and then there's this little like going back to Mexico, acomal, which is like a little sensor thing. Like it's
Hmm.
you put coals in it, And then what you would do as a woman is you would lift your skirt and walk over that thing so it would keep you warm in the winter. Right? So that thing obviously has this practical application, but one of the things is in association with everything else in the painting, it means that she has her loins are warm, and that's also an erotic association.
That's so interesting. That's very similar to what I had read and have been taught about it. The other thing to take note of is who was the audience for these images. And the thing that some people don't remember is that this is post-Renaissance, a little bit post-Baroque, but the thing is that exactly. And the interesting thing about it is when you think about who were the patrons for these images prior to this Vermeer Milkmaid series of portraits that he made, is that it was the church, right? The church and the wealthy patrons. But at this time period, with the Dutch and some Germanic countries, right, is that the merchant class was the class that was actually asking for these paintings, and they were the ones that were able to afford. So of course they weren't going to be religious in nature, they were secular, but they're also quite sensual, right? And so when people ask who was the market, like what were they in the market for, it was these types of paintings that you would have in your in your house or whatever, right, as well, which is really interesting.
Yeah, it sounds weird until you think about it. I mean, there's a whole I'll go there. There's a whole genre of pornography about maids.
Yeah.
Let's not pretend that maids are not seen as erotic, right? If you think about certain contexts, most people, when you tell them sexy maid, immediately they think of this French hypersexualized outfit. Yeah, exactly. So it's not that far off. It's just that she has less clothes. But the only reason she has less clothes is because if they did that back then, they would be to the stake with you, right? But anyhow, the point of all this conversation, I'm talking about this, is that a lot of people try to battle with those real associations and try to erase them. And we've seen this in art history as well. Not precisely with the milkmaid, because obviously we read these things, right? But for example, white Greek statues, Greek and Roman statues from the classical period. There's this whole practice of, there was this whole practice in the 1900s of scrubbing them and removing 1800 as well, removing any kind of color that they had.
Pigment, yeah.
Because Winkelmann, German art historian, had this idea they had to be white because they were the epitome of white culture.
Especially the Belvedere, the Apollo Belvedere was one of those things that he and other people during that time period, Winkelmann, used to support the idea of scientific racism is actually what it's called.
And
which
also,
was this,
no, go ahead.
No,
you
go ahead.
Also, it had to do with this whole thing of separating it from contemporary, to them, contemporary Greeks. If you've ever been to Greece, it's not a white, it is a white country, but not I mean chromatically, it's not a white country. Everything is colorful. So
it's colorful also, but also remember that, I think not you, but people need to remember that back in the day, ancient Greece, there was a lot of mixing between, for example, Northern Africa, Egyptian, right, among other different aspects. So this question of race is something that is so modern,
Yes.
It is, right? And it distorts our view of the past as well. And that's a whole other conversation that we could possibly have on
we should do that. Maybe next episode.
Just a rant.
I mean, it's a really interesting subject, especially nowadays.
For sure.
Because it applies to so many things. It applies to Greek culture and how they tried to separate it from actual Greeks. It also has to do with why, for example, the David by Michelangelo is it's seen within an art context, whereas the Mexican sunstone, to bring it back to this, is in an anthropology museum, and they're contemporary artifacts. Like they're from the same period. It's almost like the same years, almost.
Yeah. No, that's a really
Um,
interesting thing you mentioned, because when I teach my classes, I often ask the question, I always ask the question, why is this particular object an anthropological object, whereas this is a fine art object? And I stump the
exactly.
students, right? And because it goes back to our perception of cultures. Well, what is fine art, right?
Yeah,
And that has a whole history trajectory, and it is not a blind spot, I would say, but it is, what would you call it? It
I
is
would.
a blind spot?
Yeah. I mean, for
Maybe.
contemporary people, for people in the past, it was a conscious choice, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's a bias.
So it's a bias. Yes.
Yeah,
Which,
definitely.
yeah, for sure. But in any case, you were going to tell us about your exhibition and which one you saw.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well,
Just to segue into that.
yes,
I'll
very
stop
smooth.
sharing.
Okay,
So,
stop sharing. This is also part of my research. This is the Walker's gathering line, and it's this interesting thing because, well, first of all, you can see there's the image not available thing, right? And it's held at ran or was ran in online. It's not actually a gallery. Like apparently, from what I can gather, the Walker only has 8 galleries, and this is the 9th, which is online. And it was run by. If you do any kind of like new media studies, you will always hear about Steve Dietz, right? Steve
yeah.
Dietz, computability, computability, connectivity, interactivity, which are like his 3 behaviors for new media art. But this is like a who's who of new media because John Ippolito was also involved in this. Richard Reinhardt was also involved in this. And by extension, I'm pretty sure Christian Paul is also involved in this in some manner. It has to be. Anyhow, so they created this website/gallery. It's a very infuriating one. Connie already had some situations with it. Because, so this was done in the 2000s, okay? It started in 1998, 97, but honestly, it's very 2000s, early 2000s thing. And it's the tail end of net art. It's the very end of what we, and I'm going to say it, erroneously call Web 1, right? I've been doing a lot of research on that. It's a marketing term, kind of like Web 3.
Yeah.
Fun fact, Web 3 has gone so badly that they're already talking about Web 6.
Oh my gosh. How did they make the jump from 3 to 6?
Oh, easy. So Web 3 is that crypto nonsense.
Yeah.
Guess what's Web 4?
I have no idea.
Guess. You can guess. You can extrapolate.
No,
Just follow the crypto, bro.
Blockchain, NFTs.
After.
AI, like
Exactly. It's AI. It's an AI ran internet, which is a nightmare.
okay.
We're already seeing the effects of that, by the way. There's this theory called the dark internet. It's a conspiracy theory, and as always, it ends up with the Jews. But there's a slight slice of it that actually makes sense, and it's actually true. Because every good conspiracy theory is based on a little tiny little bit kernel of truth. So the idea of the dark internet or dead internet theory is that nowadays the internet is run by bots for bots and fed information from bots rather than people. So what happens with that is that, and you can see it on Google, like you go on Google nowadays and the search results are useless. Like the most common term right now on Google search is Reddit. Why do you think is that?
I have no idea.
So Reddit's this online community. It's ran by people.
Yeah.
And so one of the things you do is, okay, I want to buy a printer. So what do? I put best printers 2024. Those articles are made by AI or made for AI to be able to gain the algorithm, right?
So let me guess, people are looking towards Reddit because there is like a community of people that actually like exist rather than having to rely on AI type thing, I
Yeah,
assume.
exactly. And they will probably tell you don't get an HP printer from 2005 or newer because
Yeah.
it literally holds you hostage. Mine is holding me hostage. I will never buy an HP computer ever again. HP printer, sorry. Anyhow, what was the AI thing? And there's actually this very interesting. The Verge did this article. Hold on, let me find it real quick because you really will find this interesting. Best printer 2024, I think it is. Yes. So look at this thing. Manage option, the EU. Like different choices. Best printer 2024, best printer for home use, office use, printing labels, printer for school, homework printer, UR printer, we are all printers. That's the title of the article. Now you can see it. You can see your face now. So after a full year of not thinking about printers, the best printer is still whatever random brother laser printer that's on sale. Right?
Mhm.
It's been over a year since I last told you to just buy a brother laser printer, and that article has fallen down the list of Google search results because I haven't spent my time loading it up with fake updates so every so often to gain the attention of the Google search robot. It's become weird because the correct answer to the query, what is the best printer, has not changed. But the entire ecosystem of content farms is motivated to constantly update articles about printers in response to the incentive structure created by the robot's obvious preferences. Anyhow, so this whole thing was written with AI to mock Google documents. And the fact is that when I search best printer 2024, I mean, obviously I put that. Let's take out that and let's see. See, it's still the top result, even though it's criticizing and not really telling you anything. But then we have the other ones, like the CNET, the New York Times, Art Things or Ratings, whatever. I've never heard of this webpage. The best printer is PC Mag, which used to be good, now it's trash. Tom's Guide, which is decent. But anyhow, so you can see how many best home printer articles there are. So that was made as a joke, criticizing Google for its algorithms. Anyhow, so that's because of AI. And it's a big problem because now you do a query and the AIs get information from AIs, and because the AIs are not perfect, the information that they get is imperfect. But then that information gets fed into the system, so it's even more unperfect, right? So we're having the Xerox problem all over again in a media where it's not supposed to exist. You know what the Xerox problem is?
No, go ahead.
The copy of a copy of a copy of a copy, and the declaration of
Well,
it.
that's what I was thinking about, not specifically the Xerox problem, but how in one time over another there were so many different authors and like science fiction people, right? Well, who's the other person? I'm trying to remember. Kurzweil. Kurzweil talked about the singularity, right? In any case, there is a moment which is happening, which is starting to happen now, in which machines are interacting or reading other machines as well. And we are not privy to that. We just see the effects of what is going on, right? Machines for machines for machines, etc. Which I assume that's similar to the Xerox problem, right? The copy of the copy.
I mean, yeah, it's a long shot, but yeah, it's the closest thing I can think of.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's like the machines communicating with each other, and we're just not a part of that anymore. We just are the people that are fed, you know, the sort of the marketing situation behind it, right?
Yeah, exactly. So while you're talking about it, like I'm showing the Web 4, Web 5. So Web 4 is AI. Web 5, it's they want the web we want. Like it's all inspirational. It's a wish list. So put you in control of your data and identity. It's like right after Web 3 that destroys everything about that.
Yeah.
So they're thinking about everything done through Ethereum name service, for example, which is the least secure thing in the planet. Also, it's by Jack Dorsey, so you know you're already in iffy grounds.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, Jack Dorsey is the guy that created the worst website on the planet, Twitter. which was then made even the worst website on the universe, X. Anyhow, I swear, like 2 days after one day, because I left the day after he got it, and I was already getting very questionable recommendations, like illegal stuff that I reported, and they were like, no, it's fine. Also, you're gonna love this.
The rest haven't been corrupted by them. Who bend the platforms to their will. Gee, what a surprise.
And then they're posing more crypto as the solution to crypto. It's an Ouroboros of nonsense. And then the Chinese came up with Web 6. So this is a doozy. I swear, this is a pretty cool image. Wanna bet it's made by AI? Yes, it is. It's Midjourney 5.2. I don't know why they credit someone, because legally this has no copyright protection. If you like it, print it everywhere you want. It's better if you distribute it and destroy that copyright that they think they have. Anyhow, so Web 6, where is Web 6? Web 2, the writable web. There was no web more user controlled than Web 1. I don't know why they pretend it was. Web 4, connected immersive web. That's not. See, no, they can't even agree about what each web is. And then the Web 5, the functional web.
No, keep going.
Okay. DAOs, Rene? No. Structured Web 6 is expected to be fully integrated and hyper-personalized. It aims to use technologies like AI and machine learning to create highly tailored experiences. So we want all your data, but we're going to sell it as freedom because, Advanced technology such as quantum computing. Yeah, how? How will you leverage it? You always have to ask how when someone pitches ideas of technology to you. Because they never. Also, this is the complete opposite. Revolutionize search encryption. A quantum computer makes encryption useless. Like cryptography, actual cryptography, not crypto nonsense. Becomes way, or probably infinitely impossibly hard to do with quantum computing because So Web C is seamless integration between online and offline world. So basically, they're selling this whole idea of like Internet of Things, AR, and mixed reality. So they expect you to. So I was looking at this, and even fashion brands are looking into this, and what they want is that you buy like a mocap suit. And you wear that, and because everybody in this nightmare of a world will be wearing like a VR headset all the time, you will buy your clothes digitally.
Okay.
So basically a super fancy Instagram filter, TikTok filter. You know, those filters where you have like a hat or glasses or everything. So basically that scene from a Blade Runner where the guy has sex with the prostitute that has the body of the AI on top of her. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
If you haven't seen that, go watch that movie. It's fantastic. It's the same guy that did Dune. Anyhow, so there is this whole nonsense of the web. But going back to Gallery 9. So Gallery 9 is just still this very, it's a tangent, but it makes sense. Stick with me. So this is a very old, early internet thing. This is before we had all this hyper-capitalized thing. And one of the things you have to realize about internet art, and it really took me ages to internalize it because I knew it, but it made no sense to me, is that before 1993, hyperlinks did not exist, right? Like at least at the human level, like normal people level. Yeah, like there was some in databases and stuff like that, but it's not the same. Hyperlinks were revolutionary in a way, in a point, at a level that you do not understand. It's the whole reason of Jody.org. It's the whole reason of Mariolina's My Boyfriend Went to the War, came back from the war. And so to them, linking is what makes the internet the internet.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's actually this article, and I think it's actually Olialina herself, that talks about how linking has been abandoned and the web went from my to me. And she argues that this change from my to me is what destroyed the web. Because mine means ownership and you did something. Me is just a reflection of myself. The selfie, and she tracks it through the About Me icon on, the About Me link on web pages, how it's moved from the very far left all the way to the center knob.
You should link that in the
we'll put it on the thing.
Yeah, that sounds very fascinating too.
Yeah, so it's a really good read. I think it's on Helena. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty 99% sure it's her. But anyhow, so the whole point of this website, this gallery, is linking. So what they did is this very weird thing. You can see these little blue, red, green notes right here, right? Each one of them is an icon. It's a link. But instead of using graphics, this has the language of like data structures, right? Like, I don't know if, oh my God, I know exactly what this is. Did you ever have to defrag your hard drive on Windows? Back in the before times?
In the before times? Oof. I don't know.
Yeah. So basically, one of the basic things of maintenance in Windows like 95 was defragging your hard drive because of how memory allocations work. You would have like a little bit of your file at the beginning of the hard drive, then a little bit in the middle, and then even more down at the end. So what defragging would do is it would take and shift everything so all your files were contiguous, and that would make it faster. Let me show you. Windows defrag. Images. Oh, you can still do it. Look at this.
That's amazing. Yeah.
It's literally it. They're mimicking a defrag. Oh my God! Sorry, I just had this realization right now. You could write a paper on that.
Yeah, you could.
So they're literally defragmenting an exhibition, and they're doing it so they're putting all the artists, all the artworks in a contiguous alphabetical order. Then they're putting all the people again in a contiguous order, and then they're putting the exhibitions that they did using these works. Then they did the projects that were involved in these works. And this one that's an archive. And then you have the writings that were done about this. And then finally you have the themes. So in a way, what this did is straighten up and linearize, but at the same time, decentered the exhibition in the gallery space. Yeah. Wow, I'm writing a paper right now in my mind. So basically, if I click on this one, it'll take me to session 1999, 16 session, sorry. And this is an artwork, right? Like, by whom? Can't remember. C5. Okay, C5. I believe it's C5. No. I really don't know. That's the one thing, the problem that it has is like not everything is clear, right? So it also has this very horrible thing. Look at the link on top. So if you want to do a reference, you have to go here to this bookmarkable page, click on that, then it'll give you a link that you can bookmark. So it's a very inconvenient thing. It's also broken. We don't have the images, as you can see. No, we actually have this one. So it's Joel Slayton, I think. So some of these things still function, some of them don't. And that's one of the things about this. It's become its own case study. So for example, 1-to-1, also C5, or whatever C5 is, it's just a link and it's dead. So sometimes you're like...
Yeah, so consider this for the paper that we will hopefully write. Might be interesting to study.
So I'm going to show you this one. Wonder Walker by what I can't pronounce their names. Wattenberg and Walczak, I think it is. Right? This is hosted by the Walker. It's theoretically been taken down to update it, and so it can still be used. It's really cool work. because it collected it invited you to become a curator of links.
Mm-hmm.
So what you did, let me see if we can find the images here. Of course not. And also it has to do with Richard Reinhardt. See, here he is. Because he created like an early version of this. So if I go to Wonderwalker, it's gonna give me the dogs. No, Martin was. I think I wrote it correctly. Yes. So let's see if it loads. There we go. This one doesn't have images. Of course it doesn't. There we go. This is the image I'm looking for. So when you joined and did the thing, you would get like this little link, which would be the equivalent of an extension nowadays. But back then, the technology didn't exist. So they hacked it with JavaScript. And it opens a window. And this window asks you to draw an icon for your web link. It asks you to make a comment of why you collected that thing. And then it asks you where to place it in this virtual space. And then it asks for your name. So this is the when you're creating a link, right? But once you were in the actual interface, you could choose to see a map like this. So you could create like a figure using those figures. You could do whatever you wanted. You could also look at every icon a collector did. Sorry?
No, it just reminds me of like, not the tradition, not completely the same, but data visualization, right?
It
Techniques.
is.
Yeah, right.
And finally, the timeline, which is really useful. Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah,
because this
sure.
one destroys the collections by space. Yeah. And puts them by chronology, so you can have someone's collection link next to another one, and then you can see like what people were thinking at that time period.
Mm-hmm.
So they're trying to revive this work. I talked to Martin actually, and he may be able to restore a version for me, but we're not sure.
Cool. Yeah.
So this is the Wonder Walker. It's a really cool thing, and if you go to, I closed it. Oh no, here it is. If I go here, yes, it's dead, and there's no pictures, and there's nothing, right? And if we go like, let's say to 0100, whatever, you know what it is. You get a list of their works that they have in the exhibition. So if you click in here, you get like their website. If you click on this one, you get this other print. Actually, it doesn't exist anymore, and so on and so forth. So it's slowly dying or decaying, you want to call it that. Yeah. Then if we go into exhibitions, I think it is. Yeah. So you can see all these exhibitions that happened, and you can click on it. Could it have more? Oh, this one actually exists. Here's Messias. Anyone else you recognize? Shulgin, yeah.
A bunch of people here. Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a Mark Napier. Yeah. I can never tell. I've always read it. Mongrel.
Mongrel. Yeah.
Mark Laffa, Natalie John Hazard, Jenny Holzer, and Detective. So there's a lot. Vuk Koshik. C5. There. So yeah, they are a group. C5. Okay. Mm-hmm. Natalie Brochkin with Alexei Shulgin, blah blah blah. Danilos Gantujar, Mark America. So you can see like exhibitions that use like works from this thing. Then you can also see the projects that were done. So the abused logos. I'm not gonna go into that. I'm gonna get lost there. Empire of Science, Sonic Flux, Minneapolis Structure again. So it's Minneapolis. The Walkers in Minneapolis. Art Dirt Archives, which is also this thing that they were like talking. This has interviews with every single. There she is. There's Christian Paul. Mm-hmm. One of the things this thing doesn't have is being accessible. It's very hard to read. I have to zoom a lot. I'm no spring chicken anymore, so reading that tiny little font is already being a little bit difficult. And then you have the writings, so you can like that process questions, some answers by Vivian Salvo. You can like go into different sessions, which is a really cool thing with
Yeah.
C5. So you have all those. And then you have the themes. So you can go by advertising and you get the only word that's related to that. Then you go to browser and then you have all the browser art projects and so on and so forth. So more than talk about a single work or anything, I think that what I was interested in showing is this artifact of the early 2000s,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's a web page that is so valuable and so like dead in a way that's kind of sad. And one of the problems is like nobody took the care to preserve all of the things in it, and I don't even know if it's possible.
I wonder if it's one of those things that because NetArt was very experimental right back in the day, especially they didn't, maybe what had happened is that they didn't have what is the word I'm looking for?
Foresight?
The foresight, yes, exactly. They did not have the foresight that, working in
Absolutely.
such a space that was outside gallery spaces, like real life gallery spaces and institutions. Perhaps it was one of those things that they thought, oh, well, no one really cares about this. This is just like a performative, collaborative, etc.
I think
But it's so important though.
Yeah, no, I think that is some part of it, but I think it's also like nobody thought. A lot of people even now don't realize how fragile digital information is. I think that's
Exactly.
also a big problem. Like they
Yeah.
forgot to pay for their hosting, and they probably assumed, oh, I can just pay it again and it's back, right? But
Yeah.
no. So things like that, I think, also played a little bit of a part in it. It's and it's part of the research that we're doing at Kaite is this trying to figure out how to preserve these things, or is it even possible, right?
Yeah, for sure.
How can this survive further? Because every year that passes, you run into the risk of movies, for example. No, this one's already dead for now. Like this, like no, this one's already dead. Bad example. This one, it's also dead. This one. This one, like, how long is this group C5 gonna keep their website open?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like, how long is this gonna stay and be available? How long until someone like pass? Like, what happens when the artist pass away, and it's the state, and the state doesn't consider paying the web domains like important because it slips their mind. Like, maybe they're not even thinking about it. It's not because of anything malicious, and it's gone.
Yeah, exactly. So
Right?
that's why it's our job as art historians to historicize and also preserve this together. That's our job, right? To preserve.
Also,
We're bookmen.
yeah,
Yeah.
I just noticed something. Here's the list of works for the exhibition.
Ah, okay, okay.
It's just because it's so arcane. This website is so useful and so useless at the same time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it has so many things, so much information, but it's like done in this cutesy way that makes it hard to access. I think that's one of the things that you look at and you're like, why did they do this? Like, this is making my job so difficult. Right?
That's like, so I've been looking for my research. I had looked at the net time listserv. This is somewhat related. Can
Yeah,
you send me that link, actually? The one with
I did.
the
Yeah.
Okay. But the net time listserv was this listserv where people would email each other and they would send images, texts, and they would share. It's not that. Put listserv. Yeah. In any case,
No.
yeah, that one. I think they took away the search function. So it's
Yes.
go down, go down, go down, go down.
Oh no, here. No.
No, sorry, go up again. I'll show you. Go up. So it should
That's the
be
size of.
archives. Archives.
Okay, here we go. Oh my
And so
god.
down. But before, when I was doing research on it's really interesting because there you get to see what people were talking about in a specific year, in a specific month, like what was popular, what were what you would call now keywords in like a search function, right? And
Yeah.
you would get to see how people were thinking about hacking, for example, which is one of the topics that I'm researching, and what texts they interchanged, right? What texts they were thinking about, like
Yeah.
Deleuze Guattari, among other things, like Hakim Bey's Taz manifesto, right? Among other things.
Mhm.
But there's no search box anymore, which makes
No.
it very difficult to search key items and keywords, right?
Let
Um,
me
it's a
see something.
it's a fantastic repository, like an archive of thought and artwork and events and things like that that were taking place during the 1990s and 2000s. But I'm not sure what happened, like what has changed um so that you can't find what you're trying to look for. Like you cannot sift through is what I'm trying to say
Did you see
easily.
what I did?
Hmm.
So if you tell
Yeah.
Google site colon and then the web address and then you put your search terms, it will look into the website itself.
Yeah, but it's not the same as
It's
within the
not the
art.
same-ish, of course,
But yeah,
but I
it
mean,
is yes, it's
it's just a tip for anyone interested in actually
for
going through
sure.
this nonsense.
Yeah,
Because, like you said, like most people see, oh, there's no search. I'm gonna have to go one by one, and not necessarily. You
that's what
can
I've
just
been
do.
doing.
So you can go here and see NATO, NATO,
Yeah.
NATO, and you can see everything. Or but let's see, Olia. I don't think there's many Olias. Yeah, there we go.
Hmm.
Olialina. This is something else, but I'm guessing it's also Olialina. So
Yeah.
there
So this is
is
a really good
something
tip. Yeah, it's a good tip, except that it would have been so much more efficient
to have a
and
search.
because they did have it. They did have it.
Oh,
I
let's check
just
it
don't
out.
know exactly. So I don't know what happened that they've changed. But now I've been going through each month of every year trying to sift through all the interesting things. Um,
I'm
it's
guessing
surprising, right?
Google. If they were using the Google search, I can't guarantee that Google didn't like destroy it as with everything they do. Like
But
Google
yeah,
loves starting things and then destroying them. So I mean, what can I tell you?
yeah, but
But
yeah.
yeah, also the
So
colors. Like wow, this
yes,
is like the least readable thing ever. Red on black.
it's
Wow.
radical, right? They're the like what do you call it? Subversive colors.
I mean, it's there's two associations with this. One
Yes,
is
which
like
we
the
know
Russian
of.
party, and the other not Russian party. Um, yeah, that's a complicated thing, but yeah, it's very aggressive in on the eyes. I don't know if it's aggressive like specifically, but it is very hard to read, and I don't like that. But yeah,
But
so
another, this
anyhow,
is just an example of another good repository or archive, I should
yeah,
say, of artwork, but also just exchanges between people that you get to see that they had. But yeah.
yeah, definitely, and it's one of those things. Like at least some effort was made, right? The problem with these
Hmm.
things is that they don't exist in an interconnected world.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that's what makes them so fragile. Because if you could have, let's say, the source code for every one of the websites and the images and everything, as long as it's not depending, which is also a big if it's not running on the back of some form of API, you can have like the thing survive for a long time. The thing
Hmm.
is, once you insert these third sites, for example, there's a lot of works from like the 2010, 20, no, yeah, the 10s, 10, middle of the 2010s that use Twitter to draw data. They're
Hmm.
all gone. They're all destroyed because, uh, well, Twitter doesn't exist. That's one of the big problems because it's no longer. So everything that you wrote that used like codes for Twitter doesn't work anymore. But also
Hmm.
because Look how hard it's going to be searching this. XAPI. Let's see what happens. See? So if you want to get access to the API, and you only need 1,500 posts is nothing, by the way. And it's already 100 months. Right? It's ridiculous. And then if you go to 5,000 per month, it's a 1 million posts. You can go through 1 million posts because a post is every single like exclamation mark thing that Musk does on every comment that talks about the far right. Every single person that just puts LOL. So you can go through 5 million posts in seconds, right? Especially if you're doing it. So as long if you're scrubbing enough data, 5 million is like ridiculous. And then you have this enterprise, 42,000 a month. Includes 50 plus million posts per month, 3 plus apps. 3 plus apps. So that means that this one is only 2 apps. If you want to do a third one, good luck.
Yeah.
Your costs just went up 5,000%, I think.
I'm not the mathy one.
I'm not the mathy one either. There's no mathy one here. Okay, anyways, it goes from 100 a month to 5,000 a month if you have more than 2 things. So an artist that does Twitter, art that uses Twitter for their data visualization or whatever, you can only have 2 artworks ever. If you're paying 100 a month, you stop paying for that. It used to be free. It's just that Muskie cannot pay for Twitter. So he's doing everything to squeeze as much money as he can from you. Did you know that if you make a new account, you have to pay to be able to post now?
What?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
This is a forest fire. Anyhow, so the APIs for Twitter absolutely destroyed. So a lot of works that worked on Twitter. Oh, we're using the background. Stop. All of those things are gone. They can't be run anymore because you have to pay Musk more money for it. So, I mean, for example, Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo used to pay Twitter. Well, they didn't have to pay, but they stopped offering the possibility of sharing screenshots from their video games onto X because of this change.
Yeah.
Like once you have Nintendo, Sony, and PlayStation, and that's Microsoft going, you know what, it's not worth it. You know that there's a big issue here. In terms of the API. And for smaller creators, that gets even worse. And for scientists, and for new media artists, new media art historians as well. I am not able to go and look at any artist's work if they put it on Twitter. And the problem is a lot of artists are still there.
Yeah, it's a question of accessibility too, and like audience, right? And so that becomes a really huge issue with things like X or Twitter. Anyway.
So anyhow, so that just exemplifies like the risks that data has nowadays, and why this exhibition was really interesting, because it's still holding, like, you know, the tips of its fingers, like, but it's still like there. By a thread, less than a thread, it's unraveling fast.
Yeah.
And that's one of the problems that we're looking at here. So it was a really interesting exhibition that I think I wanted to share with people.
Yeah, you have to please, we're going to leave the link at the bottom so that everyone can have access to it as well, and they can peruse as much as they want. So, yeah.
And blues. No. So I think with that, I am fresh out of things to say.
Same, yeah. That was great, though.
Yeah, that was really good. I really enjoyed this. And both exhibitions were really good in very different ways, which is even better. Because if it's the same thing, it's just like,
no, and we're going to try to do more of these interchangeably, right? Whenever we get a chance. Because that's part of our job. We have to go to exhibitions and evaluate them. And
well, they say that. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I have the ZKM and I haven't been there.
Oh, boy. Yeah. You gotta
go. I have to pay. It's annoying. It's like we're in collaboration with you. Why do we have to pay to go in anyway? Um, so yeah, with that, I want to say thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.